Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Project HR podcast, where we deliver new ideas every week to help you build a better workplace. Project HR is brought to you by IRI Consultants. IRI helps organizations navigate workplace challenges, improve employee engagement and productivity, manage labor relations, and implement effective communication strategies to achieve their goals. For more information, you can visit IRI Consultants at iriconsultants.com. I am Jennifer Oraquad, Director of Business Development for IRI, and your host for today's episode of Project HR. Now, talent acquisition has never been more challenging than it is right now. And while that puts the pressure on HR, it has forced us to examine old hiring habits and even reassess the talent pool with a fresh set of eyes. Today, I'm talking with retired Lieutenant Colonel Kathy Gallowitz, a 30-year veteran of the United States Air Force. As a civilian, she's become the founder and CEO of Vanguard Veteran, an organization whose mission it is to equip civilians to become veteran champions. She's also written a book titled Beyond Thank You for Your Service. Kathy, I'm so excited to talk with you. Thank you for joining us here on Project HR.
Hello, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.
So I want to start off by talking a little bit about your background. What prompted you to join the military?
Well, I grew up as a Navy kid, a Navy brat, as the term goes. My father was a pilot and a communications engineer. And, my brother went to the Naval Academy, and I just really learned because of how mobile my life was, because I lived overseas a lot. I really learned to appreciate my country, the freedoms that we have, and really wanted to serve and give back. I love the military customs and courtesies, and frankly, I love the focus on leadership, education, and physical fitness. So for me, it was just sort of an automatic. I loved being a military. I didn't love being a military brat because I moved so much, but
Right.
I really wanted to serve and do my part.
So what inspired you to start Vanguard Veteran?
Well, Vanguard Veteran is my business, and it's essentially an outgrowth of what I had done for the Ohio National Guard. After 9/11 hit, the reserve component, which is the reserve and the guard, they deployed like no time in our nation's history. We were deploying alongside our active duty counterparts. And so instead of being a sort of a reserve force, we were becoming operational. So when that happened, Jennifer, the needs of our people really increased because in the reserve component, 80% of our manpower is part-time military. They either have a full-time civilian job, or they're going to school to get a degree, or they're doing something else. So when 80% of your manpower is part-time, that really touches a lot of aspects of their life. And so employers were always center stage on the outreach and the engagement that we did. And so we built a statewide outreach office in response to 9/11 to educate and engage civilians in support of troops and their families. When I retired after 29 years, I was just like, no one is really cultivating civilian veteran champions systemically, consistently. That work is so important. And so I'd learned so much through my time when I was in uniform, and I wanted to continue it. When in uniform, there was an office about four of us that did work across the state of Ohio. We were reaching out to employers, lawyers, healthcare providers, leaders of diverse community, educators, and clergy. It was pretty broad. We had more of a deep reach with employers, with healthcare providers, and with clergy. And so through Vanguard Veteran, I narrowed my scope to helping employers find and keep veteran talent and helping build military ministries inside congregations, and then also providing some leadership development training. So I just was, very passionate about this work. It's really my life's calling, having spent, practically every waking moment of my life considering something having to do with military service. It's truly my passion and my joy to help civilians become veteran champions.
So frame that up for us. What does it mean to be a veteran champion?
Well, I define that as someone who's never served, someone who's never worn the uniform, who builds mutually beneficial activities or services that promote quality of life, workforce, and community. Let's go a little bit deeper here. Uh, I contend that if a citizen takes the time to get to know a veteran or someone who's currently serving, that their life will be richly blessed. Certainly, the veteran's life is blessed because the citizen is taking time to get to know them and hopefully asking how they can support them. But also, I believe that someone who's never served has a great deal to learn from people who have served and sacrificed in the military. And then in the workforce, by hiring veterans, we strengthen the civilian workforce because of the skills and attributes that military members bring. And in the community, if you're a good neighbor, if you build a military ministry inside your congregation, if you take time to have coffee with somebody and just say, thank you for wearing the uniform, all those things are part of the veteran champion movement. And I believe that people, when they do those things, are being a part of the win, because it really is a win-win if you do any of those things.
So, shifting over to our HR audience, in your opinion, how have recruiters typically viewed veteran candidates?
I think I'll use the word confusion
Mhm.
is probably the best descriptor. Uh, but like around the year 2011, when veteran unemployment was so huge, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce got together and like, wow, we have to do something to, help our veterans get gainful and meaningful employment. And since that time, I mean, it's just been really exciting, Jennifer, to see how that confusion has become a little bit more clear. I wouldn't say that it's crystal clear,
Mhm.
because the Society of Human Resource Management, did a study in 2019, and they've been great partners in this effort as well. They say that employers think that veterans, 68% of employers feel that veterans are better employees, if not much better employees, than their non veteran counterparts. And that's really a good news story. However, other research will tell us that 60% of 60 or 70% of HR professionals don't have specific messaging to the veteran community. They
Mhm.
don't have trainings in place to understand military culture. And so, despite the fact that, veterans are one of the most highly touted talent pools, because the business case is understood. I mean, it goes beyond, well, yeah, we need to take care of our veterans, or, doing it out of goodwill. The business case is understood that, the attributes that veterans bring help the civilian workforce. And so that's good. So our our companies are veteran friendly, okay, Jennifer, but
Mhm.
really, to make this work and to leverage the opportunity that veteran talent brings inside the workforce, we really need to have an effective machine, and move towards becoming veteran ready. So there's not as much confusion. I think there's a strong desire to hire veterans, but there's challenges, in that process. And so that's what Vanguard Veteran helps employers with.
So, in reality, what do veterans bring to the table from a hiring perspective?
Well, let's talk about it. There are so many lists out there. Everybody has
Mhm.
sort of a different approach, but
Sure.
the number one attribute that I hear all the time is leadership. We need to know how to lead in the military, and we bring that certainly to the civilian workforce. I think maybe the affect or the approach might need to be softened a little bit sometimes, but we certainly are get or done kind of people, not afraid to pick up the mantle, get the job done through leadership. And so we're certainly very mission focused, disciplined, loyal. We understand how to deal with risk. We're technologically savvy. We know how to lead, but we also know how to follow, and that's really
Mhm.
important to be able to traverse the two. And a thing I want to highlight right now, because we're still, I think we're moved out of the pandemic. Veterans understand how to help a team function well. We couldn't survive without standard operating procedures in the military because it's really important that
Hmm.
everybody understands their specific job in the team. And so we I hate to say live and breathe on policies and procedure. That's overstated, but people need to understand how to function and who to talk to and how to move from point A to point B. And so when there's chaos and uncertainty, veterans are people really that companies can lean on to
Hmm.
help them return to their new normal.
Hmm.
So I hope that if any of you listening have veterans in your on your team, that you'll give them an opportunity to contribute and maybe put some structure around something that's
Hmm.
really kind of been tough to manage, especially because of the pandemic. So I think that pretty much covers it.
So,
One more thing though, real
sure.
quick: adaptability. Adaptability is a huge attribute that employers seek, and from my own experience, I lived in 20 different communities before the age of 35.
Hmm.
And in my lifetime, I've probably had 17 different jobs. Now, that's not because I got let go of a job. It's because of two things. Number one, I'm curious and I have a lot of interests. But number two, because I moved a lot. And so I had to reinvent myself and, really learn how to be adaptable. And then what that brings is uh, being adaptable teaches you stress management, teaches you flexibility and resiliency. And then the last piece of this, I believe, is that, veterans are really key people to help you prepare your workforce for tomorrow
Hmm.
as we, become more automated, and as we become more remote. you know
Hmm.
military people have just fundamentally have had to learn how to cope in just the strangest of environments, the most difficult of environments, and they are technologically savvy and can really help you manage change and get the team on board, so to speak.
Hmm. And so, for our HR audience, becoming that veteran champion, that's legitimately about making smart hiring choices for our companies.
Absolutely.
All right, Kathy, I'm going to take a quick sponsorship break right now, but when we return, I want to explore how we can all become veteran champions. Stay with us.
If you've ever been involved in a union organizing effort, you know that a campaign can swallow up internal resources with an appetite like no other issue. You need to be prepared to reach employees in a way that is not only cost-effective, but accurate and timely. IRI Consultants Digital Solutions Group understands the challenges of reaching bargaining unit employees and is here to help. Delivery can include not just videos and websites, but social media, texting, podcasts, apps, and more. With IRI's digital solutions team by your side, you can keep up with campaign messaging while supporting your direct relationship with employees. Our consultants will help you craft a comprehensive strategy that promotes employee engagement and supports your positive employee relations philosophy. Contact us today at iriconsultants.com to get started with your digital communication strategy.
I'm back now with Lt Col Kathy Gallowitz, founder and CEO of Vanguard Veteran, and the author of Beyond Thank You for Your Service. So, Kathy, I think one of the reasons why veterans haven't always been the top of recruiter lists is simply being unfamiliar with the process of sourcing and properly interviewing military talent. Can you walk us through that process?
First off, I want to say that sourcing is not easy. Okay. It takes a little bit of elbow grease
Hmm.
to develop those relationships. I encourage any recruiter, talent acquisition team to be proactive and go out and find the veterans, develop relationships with them where they work and play, so to speak. You got to be kind of out of the box, creative, and frankly, getting involved in the veteran community and distinguishing yourself as veteran friendly. Show up at the veteran, patriotic holidays.
Hmm.
Show up at the deployment ceremonies or welcome home ceremonies. Show up and donate to family readiness events. Just be ever present
Hmm.
in the local veteran community, because that's really where your people will come from. And indeed, that is research has found that doing that proactively really is a retention tactic for those veterans that you currently employ, because you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the talk, right? You're going outside your organizational walls, getting to know people in the local community, and letting them know what a great place you have for veterans to work. Wear your t-shirts out in the Veterans Day parade, and show your pride and distinction for, show your veterans that work for you, enter them into the parade. There's just so many ways that you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really in your best interest to do that. And that's a little bit more of a long-term sort of strategy. And so the immediate term is, connect with U.S. Chamber of Commerce, connect with nonprofit agencies, connect with the American Job Centers. Many of the state and state agencies, have veteran hiring preference. Annotate on your job requisition or your job posting that you want to hire veterans. Get involved with Hire Our Heroes. I mean, there's just a lot of ways to get out there and be known either locally, state, or nationally. So you got to put a little bit of effort into finding that talent. And it's not a super straightforward process, and it's one that takes a little bit of investment.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I want to go a little deeper on something that you mentioned earlier about understanding how military skills translate into, useful and marketable business skills. How do we go about understanding that?
Well, if you don't know about military skills translators, I encourage you to Google that and become very fluent with their use. One that I like in particular is ONET. And it basically it's a military crosswalk, and it goes military to civilian or civilian to military. For instance, an infantry man in the Army is someone who is trained to do the nation's brutal work, foot soldier on the combat field, trained to respond and do the tough work of maybe killing people. And so there are, in the Army, they are called an 11 Bravo. If you put 11 Bravo into this military crosswalk at ONET, O''NET, you will put in 11 Bravo in Army, you will see a whole list of job categories that he is eligible to serve in. And what's really interesting, one of the right at the top is a training and development manager. Okay, well, yeah, that's not obvious at first blush, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But
right.
then it breaks down the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are needed for this training and development manager. And then what's really cool is if you go onto the civilian side and you put in 11 Bravo. No, wait a minute. It works both ways. It works both ways.
Okay.
And so that tool, and there's other military skills translators out there, but it's really important that you understand that military skills are highly transferable, number one, that it's important to train for aptitude, not, previous specific job experience, because frankly, most military people can be trained to do most things because that's what we do in the military. We train some more. But these skills translators will help identify questions or things you're not clear on that you can address in the interview, and maybe even create additional ideas that you haven't thought of. Jennifer, let's talk a little bit about interviewing there before. I think we lost that one.
Sure.
Back. Let's talk about that. In the interview process, I recommend that you bring in someone that is a current veteran that's working for you. That creates, I think, an immediate bond, veteran to veteran. Certainly the recruiter or the other person who's, quite asking the questions, still do that. But the veteran might be able to, ask the question in a little bit different way so that the job seeker can grab it a little easier, because we have different jargon and we're not really, sometimes there's a big communication gap, right? Or after the interview, the current veteran employee can maybe, clear up some of the questions of the recruiter, and make things a little bit easier to understand. And so in the interview process, using the behavioral questionnaire is important. Situational type of questions, and really kind of working early on to help that veteran feel comfortable, because we come from a very hierarchical background, and it's kind of like it's overstated, but kind of like back in the day when kids were raised, speak when spoken to. We're very mindful of our senior members of our organization, and frankly, they talk first, and so in an interview process, the recruiter is seen as the authority, and they're not going to be chatty Cathys. More often than not, they're going to be uncomfortable. They may have rigid posture. They may say yes ma'am, no ma'am. They may not. And one thing they're really bad at is self promotion, because in the military, there's no I in team, right? And it's always we. It's always we, which is a valuable thing for the workforce, but not so valuable necessarily in the interview process. So, someone may say, "Yeah, I was a truck driver." Well, not only did they drive that truck, but they were responsible for millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment. They had, several, I don't know, lots of people under them. So they were responsible for the health and welfare of all those people. And so the military person may not elaborate very well on really the capacity and the opportunity that they would bring to that new job role.
Yeah. So what are some common myths and misconceptions about hiring and working with veterans? I mean, clearly that's a starting point, but what do we think it's really a misconception?
So I chose the word when you asked me this first question, what do recruiters think of military? And I think confusion is really a good neutral word. But, there's also some stigmas and stereotypes that unfortunately, can do a real disservice to our veteran job seekers. And, the media, sensationalizes, horrific things that might happen. And this person may, have had some military experience. And so, I think there is a myth and misconception that, veterans are, either sick with PTSD, or, potentially too bossy, or, maybe only know how to bark orders. And, the drill sergeant kind of, programs you see on television, those drill sergeants are real important, by golly. They turn civilians into warriors, and we have to have, but, leadership in the military is no different than leadership outside the military. It's about influence, nothing more, nothing less. However, we have the added benefit of rank to, really make the process serious, and to make the process flow more efficiently. Okay. So those myths and misconceptions harm the military person, and don't help them, reach their potential, and potentially make it difficult, during the hiring process. Now, that being said, there may be some coaching that a military person would benefit from, working in a new environment, just like you would coach any person. But what you're getting, if you're willing to, potentially work through some of those hiccups, if you will, you're getting someone who's very mission focused, someone who's loyal, someone who's productive. And, veteran hiring done well, research shows, can produce cost savings. So, I think that's a pretty good overview of some of the myths and misconceptions. And yet, I do need to clarify that the Department of Veterans Affairs says that of the 2.6 million Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, 20% have post-traumatic stress disorder. So what does that mean, Jennifer? Right? That means 80% do not. Right? And I went through kind of a long story about how we learn adaptability and resiliency and flexibility. And so even one of those 20% people do have PTSD, they can learn to live full lives and manage their triggers. And it's not true that people with PTSD are highly violent. Those are some of the other things that people fear.
Hmm.
So, um, knowing how to ask those questions, you don't ask somebody if they have PTSD, of course, but
Right.
um, you know, just being prepared in the interview process, looking at the military skills translators and, asking the kinds of questions and having the support of a veteran
Hmm.
employee team member really goes a long way.
So, Kathy, are there any retention tactics that work best with the military population?
Yes, I think the most effective and simplest thing that any employer can do is to connect veterans to each other. Allow that uh, current employee to offer support as you onboard the new guy, and just keep an open dialogue about how things are going for this with the supervisor, and uh, just take interest and
Hmm.
be a mentor if you can,
Hmm.
and provide feedback. Feedback is welcome and encouraged in the military, and you're missing out on an opportunity if you don't give that new hire feedback. Those are some
Sure.
real simple tactics you
Yeah,
can do.
that definitely makes sense. So, do you think that we in the HR space and recruiters should we put this into the category of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the hiring of veterans?
Well, I think that is the main entry point for this discussion and this development. However, I think it's larger than that. I think the military population is one of the most diverse populations already. Diverse in terms of ethnicity and background and cognition, and I think that we all have a vested interest in helping our military hires succeed,
Hmm.
because we need to continue to be able to field a fighting force, and if our fighting force when they come home is integrated well and doing well, we're going to have a greater opportunity to continue to recruit that force. And we all have a vested interest in that happening.
All right, Kathy, it's time for another quick break. We're going to be right back after this. You're listening to the Project HR podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Oraqua, and my guest today is Lt Col Kathy Gallowitz, founder and CEO of Vanguard Veteran and author of Beyond Thank You for Your Service. We're back. So, Kathy, beyond simply supporting veteran candidates during recruitment, how can we as recruiters and HR professionals best support the veteran champion movement?
Specifically, I think the things we've already talked about, engaging your current veteran employees in the all aspects of the veteran hires employment life cycle by getting involved in the local veteran community and being visible through volunteering or philanthropic efforts, by celebrating military holidays, by understanding how to connect with veterans and be supportive person to person or through benefits policies, that sort of thing,
Hmm.
and just building that inclusive climate inside your company.
So, let's talk a little bit about your book. When did you decide to write this and why?
I retired in 2016 and realized that there was a huge gap in our society generally, and that is that no one was really cultivating civilian veteran champions on a consistent, reliable basis. And I had seen firsthand how just a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of knowledge, and a little bit of thanks, a lot of thanks, a lot of appreciation really moved the dial, so to speak, because civilian veteran champions can just do so much without a lot of effort through their knowledge base. And then, for instance, a recruiter, talent acquisition understands military skills translators. You can figure that out in 10 minutes.
Hmm.
So when I retired as the director of community outreach for the Ohio National Guard, I realized there is still so much more work that needs to be done. But the Department of Defense dabbles in it, but their primary mission is to secure our national security, right? And so I wanted to continue to do my part, felt very moved to uh, continue this work. And so I narrowed my scope into employers and faith community leaders, but I really wanted to showcase some of the really good work that about 20 veteran champions, mostly in Ohio, had done, and talk about real practical ways, simple practical ways that citizens can do more from their circle of influence or from their neighborhood to improve quality of life, workforce, and community. So, I'm pretty excited about it. We cover employment, healthcare providers, lawyers, educators, and clergy, and then general community members. So it's chock full of practical take-home tips that you can learn. And you're like, wow, I've never thought about that. And it's just that kind of thing, just being aware.
And your book, of course, can be purchased on Amazon as well as on the Vanguard Veteran website. Can you tell us a little bit more about your website and the work that you do there?
Oh, sure. So I'm a consultant, trainer, and speaker. Love opportunities to come speak at veteran holidays, DE&I projects, anything about veteran hiring, associations or professional organizations that have to do with hiring. And so I can come alongside an employer as a consultant and help you source veteran talent, help you interview, onboard, and retain that talent. I call myself the veteran hiring concierge.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also help faith communities equip volunteers to build military ministries as a place of connection and support, practical support, and a way to build spiritual resiliency to help foster a sense of belonging, decrease isolation, and really promote quality of life in partnership with our clergy. So on my website, you can find blogs about all kinds of things related to military life, transition, PTSD, how to connect with a veteran, etc. There's a link there for inviting me to speak, a page on military ministries, certainly a page on all the different services that we provide for employers to help them excel as veteran-friendly employers and to help them move towards becoming veteran-ready.
So if our listeners want to find out more about you, your book, or this movement, where should they go?
VanguardVeteran.com. I would encourage you to email me at Kathy with a K at VanguardVeteran.com. Please feel free to like my Facebook page, Vanguard Veteran, and or my LinkedIn professional page, Vanguard Veteran. Of course, I've got a personal LinkedIn page, Lt Col Kathy Gallowitz. I'm very active on social media. I hope that you will find it very educational and connect with me.
Sure. And I want to let everyone know that those links will be included in this episode's companion guide. So be sure to unlock that today at projectionsinc.com/podcast. Right now, though, Kathy, it is time for our lightning round questions. These are questions I ask of every guest of the podcast. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Our first question is always a topic showdown. In this episode, we've been talking about becoming a veteran champion. As a retired Air Force veteran, what is your favorite Air Force motto? Aim high or a great way of life?
Aim high, because you always got to reach for the sky and do the best you can.
I like that. All right, next question. What is the best book that you've read recently?
Well, I went and got it specially. It's called Vertical Marriage, Dave and Ann Wilson with John Driver. And it really talks about how to lean on Christ and don't put so much doggone pressure on your spouse.
Very good. All right, next question. What's your favorite thing about the work that you do?
Oh, gosh. The joy that I see in citizens' eyes, it's almost palpable when they get it and they've done something good for a service member, veteran, or military spouse, and or when a veteran or military connected person is the recipient of the services that have been developed. That's just very heartwarming for me.
Yes, very nice. All right, next question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I worked for just a wonderful gentleman, Colonel Bob Boggs, who hired me back into full-time military service because of my aptitude, not because of my previous job experience. And really, what comes up in my mind is that, Kathy, not everybody's going to like you.
That's funny. All right, last one. Who or what inspires you?
I'm inspired by John Maxwell, by Joyce Myers, by my sister, by my husband. And frankly, you know what? I'm really also really inspired by my 3 sons.
Very nice. Kathy, thank you so much for joining me today on this week's episode of Project HR.
Thank you. It's been great. Appreciate it.
I also want to thank those listening in. Don't forget that we took great notes on this episode for you, and you can grab those notes for free at projectionsinc.com/podcast. If you're ready for your Project HR debut, our team is always looking for outstanding guests. Let us know about your expertise at projecthr@iriconsultants.com. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to Project HR. A new episode drops every Thursday. Finally, drop me a line, leave us a review, or give the show a handful of stars wherever you get your content. That's all for this episode of Project HR. Let's make it a great day at work.